Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you in this virtual format. I wish I could be there in person, but that is unfortunately not always possible. I am coming to you today from New York City, where I live, and I guess we'll maybe get some of this nor'easter before it hits Boston. I don't know. Um, I was asked today to speak about the family experience, and that is a really broad topic. And I'm grateful to Renee, who allowed me to shape a presentation with a lot of flexibility this morning. So I wanted to hopefully provide a very, very broad overview of the family experience in terms of understanding why a family is impacted, but really honing in on hopefully some helpful nuggets to you as you support any other children that you have in your family, and especially as you tend to your own needs as a parent. And I'll confess I can't see my notes in my setup, so I'm just gonna, there may be a few more ums than I like, which is okay. So I like to present this circle when we're talking about the family experience because this is an image that I borrowed, and many of us in this psychology space borrow from a researcher named Yuri Bronfenbrenner, who spoke about child development in this sort of image where he said a way a child develops is an interaction between themselves and all of these people in the child's life. And so you can see these lines connecting the child circle, or you could think about if there were lines connecting one circle to another, that they would be bidirectional. Like imagine an arrow on either side. So here you have a child in the center of their own development, and then you have those that are closest to the child having maybe the most significant impact on that child's development, right? So think about parents and siblings, and that it shows up here as a green circle. And then in the orange circle, you have other really important people in that child's life, which could be like extended family, maybe it's grandparents, maybe it's friends, maybe it's a close neighbor. And then you have the broader community structure that the child lives in. So those are things like schools and other infrastructure in the child's community. But I think we can use the same image to think about the illness experience story and the impact on a family, right? So you have this child who has a health condition, and then you can think about all of these circles, all of these groups of people are also in some way or another impacted by that condition, right? So there's like a ripple effect. You drop a pebble in a pond and then it goes and ripples out. And so clearly the parents and siblings, or any of those who are otherwise very close to the child, will share the greatest impact of that condition and experience. But there may be ripple effects on others in the community as well. So it's a family experience in that you as a parent or a sibling relate directly to the child, right? You have a relationship to this ill child, but it's also a very personal experience because we can think about relationships as like we also have a relationship to the condition itself. And in some places, you may hear of thinking of a serious health condition as being another person in the family or another being that has a personality and mind of its own that everyone in the family has a relationship to, right? So certainly the child with the condition has a relationship to that condition, but the other people in the family have a relationship to that condition as well. A good example of this is it is perfectly reasonable and normal for you as a parent or caregiver and the siblings at times to really resent the impact of this condition on the family life and the family's day to day. That's not the same as saying you resent this child, right? You have a loving relationship to the child with the condition, but you can resent the condition. You can be angry at the condition and what it requires of all of you and your family structure to live with. So you have both a relationship to the child has a relationship to you, everyone has a relationship to the condition. And of course, we can't have a discussion about the family without a reminder that parent and child functioning are interrelated. So I wouldn't give too much, don't focus too much on the positioning of these words, although I like that parent is the larger gear because as the parent or caregiver, you're the head of the family. But everyone's functioning affects everyone else's functioning. And you know this because you know that when somebody's having a grumpy day, once again, think about the pebble in the pond, there's a ripple effect. Everyone is affected by the person in the family who's having that grumpy day. Now, everyone is also capable of coping with that, right? So if someone's having a bad day or in a bad mood, it doesn't mean the family necessarily shuts down, right? We have coping strategies we employ, right? So if you're a sibling and you have another sibling with a bad day, but you need to go off and play your soccer game, you can still go play your soccer game, right? Like you pull yourself up and you go do that. And if you're a parent who works and you know that the family started off rough that morning, but you need to get to work, you will find a way to do that, right? Because you employ your coping strategies, you are resilient, and you get yourself to do the things that you need to do. But the positive opposite of that, of thinking about someone having a bad day and affecting the family, is we can also think about this from an intervention perspective. The good news is that when you intervene and do something that is helpful for any one of these people, or boost the coping strategies of any one of these people, it then in turn affects the whole family in a really nice positive way. So a lot of interventions, and what we'll be talking about in the second half of today's presentation, is boosting a parent's well-being, knowing that it has a trickle-down effect on the entire family. I also want to mention here that many times you hear about taking care of parents justified under a reason that is you need to take care of yourself before your children, or that analogy about you need to put the oxygen mask, like the airplane analogy. You got to put that oxygen mask on yourself first, right? Boost the parent up, and that is the reason why you need to take care of yourself, because you have these other people who are relying on you. And there is truth in that. I can't dismiss the truth in that. However, that analogy, I think, doesn't always work for me personally. One, because I worry that it comes with some guilt, in that if you are in a bad place and just can't pull yourself up by the bootstraps in that moment or in that stage of life, it doesn't make you a bad parent, right? We all go through hard times. So if you can't tend to yourself the way you wish you would be, you're still doing a good job as a parent. Two, that is not the only reason to justify tending to self. You can also take care of yourself because you're a person who deserves it, not just because a family is relying on you. So you deserve to feel as well as you can. I'm going to share this video, and I think the audio will work, but someone can let me know if it's not working. This is my colleague Jennifer speaking about how she and her husband thought about the family experience. Their son Ben, here on the left, had Sanfilippo syndrome.
You can't be entirely thoughtful about it, and you can't predict how either of your children are going to be, but we did try to involve them in decisions. We didn't let the decision be them about Ben and things that we had to face with him, but we did try to make them feel like they were part of, let them understand and know that we understood that it was going to impact them.
So we asked them to participate, but we never put the burden of deciding upon them. We didn't think that was fair or necessarily something that we wanted to have to force them to do.
So when we had to decide if we were going to give Ben spinal surgery, which at the time of his disorder was going to be a pretty major medical intervention for him, and one that could end his life, that's a big issue to grapple with. And we did involve them in the conversation around that and what did it mean. And they were older, so they were, all in their teens, so they could sort of comprehend it. But we tried to involve them in issues that changed our family structure and have a conversation around them. so that they could feel, I think, empowered by it too, and feel like they had a voice, because this isn't happening to them, it's happening with them.
So I love this video, and I love Jennifer's concluding remark that it's not happening to them, it's happening with them. And I think that the images I've shown to this point and what we're talking about today is this experience in the family is happening with everyone, and everyone is equally impacted, even though the expression of that impact might vary at different time points, right? And so here are some quotes. I don't know how large your screen is, so I'm going to read some of them in case you can't read the text, but these are some direct quotes from siblings who have done some work with us at Courageous Parents Network. One says, "Your problems pale in comparison to your sibling. And so as a kid, the idea of coming to my parents and saying, 'Hey, I know the house is burning down, but I have a scrape on my knee,' was terrifying. Life with a sibling with a chronic disorder is a crisis every day. I was angry that I was sort of being robbed of a normal sibling relationship, of time with my parents, of the ability to do normal family things like vacations or even go to a restaurant, all of the things that are normal parts of growing up. Since my parents were so occupied, I just kind of had to not exist. I felt so alone," and so on. These quotes are hard to hear. And I raise them because it's important to be thinking about the feelings and experiences that your other children may have that they may not express or may not get expressed in words, right? So you're thinking about a spectrum of development, and you may have older children, teenagers, young adult children who are now able to articulate things like this. You may have younger children who are not able to articulate in words and express things, which is developmentally appropriate, through things like behavioral changes or emotional outbursts and that sort of thing. In fact, your older children, though, may also express it in those ways and may not articulate. But children are impacted by this condition, and they want, all kids want to have what they perceive as a normal family life. That's pretty standard. And so they notice if there are gaps between that and their expectation of what is normal, which may be crafted by like what they see in other families, for example. However, it is not helpful to just focus on what we think is hard, what we think could go wrong for siblings, because so much can go right. You can have both these feelings and descriptions here that you see on the screen, and you can have a lot of wonderful things happen too. And this is what the research shows. There are risk factors. There are things that may increase risk for siblings having maladjustment, having behavioral, academic, social, or emotional concerns. And there's also research that shows the positive experience to a sibling who has lived with a sibling who has a serious health condition. Siblings will report a degree of closeness with their family that their peers who have healthy siblings do not report. They report resiliency and growth. They'll report knowing what matters most, right? So a real sense of, some discrepancy in terms of maturation, which we can think of in negative terms, but we can also think of in real positive terms too. A lot of siblings grow up to do all kinds of beautiful, wonderful things that were inspired by their childhood. I've worked in hospitals where siblings have become nurses or physicians, or have done things like work for nonprofits, because they really see what matters to them and want to take it to the next level. So, and this will be the case for parents too, right? There are things that we worry about and we want to make sure are supported, and things that can be positive as well. So when it comes to your role as a parent, I think that there are some things that you've likely tried to do that are impactful and important. Things like keeping that child's life as normal as possible, limiting how much you ask them to be involved in direct care for their sibling with the condition. Making sure that they still get to go on the school overnight trip, that sort of thing. But I think that in addition to that, a very great impact that parents can have that doesn't require means or a lot of time is just really solid, good communication in the family that can do so much to buffer the sibling experience. So when it comes to questions, for example, you want to make sure that you're responding honestly all the time, but within a developmental lens. So what we mean by that is think about your child's not just age, but where they are developmentally. Not every 4-year-old looks the same, not every 12-year-old looks the same. And think about what information can I give that's going to satisfy this child in this moment that is true and honest, but also meets them where they're at in terms of their development and understanding. You want to make sure that you're responding to the child's actual concerns. So kids ask all kinds of things, and it's helpful oftentimes, and this is just with general child development too, to ask a follow-up question to get at what they really are asking. So if they say, is my sibling going to come home soon? Maybe the sibling's been admitted to the hospital. You could say, oh, tell me more what you're thinking. What do you mean by soon? And maybe they just mean like, oh, are they going to be home tonight when we all have dinner? Like we usually have dinner together as a family. They may be really actually worried, is this the last time they're going to the hospital and they're not going to come home this time? And so you could ask these follow-up questions to try to get to the core of the issue so that you can respond to the real question underneath. You can think about seed planting, and this is a strategy that I think can be helpful. If you are able to, in some ways, and we're not talking about the fine detail because nobody can predict the future in fine detail, but if you see something that's on the horizon, for example, a major surgery, let's talk about that. Maybe that's something you and your child's team have been talking about for some time. You're getting to a point where you anticipate a decision is going to come soon. And maybe that surgery would require an extended hospitalization or a change in care, a change in equipment at home when the child comes back home. You can start planting seeds early on. So you can say to your other children, we've been having conversations with your sister's doctor. Here's what we're learning. They think that we might have to do more about XYZ problem in the future. Do you have questions about that, or should we just update you when we have more information, right? Just kind of like lay the picture so it doesn't feel like a bomb's been dropped when there's a big change. That bomb drop feeling make children potentially feel like you have been withholding information, which you never want to do, or you don't want them to perceive you as doing. And it also increases the feeling of unpredictability in the family. And everybody wants predictability. So to the extent that you can shape predictability about what's to come in the family, it's ideal. And always validate the feelings, right? Validate and relate. I too am upset when we have to cancel plans, when this thing is going on with your sibling, and it's okay that you're frustrated by that. I get it. I would be mad too. Okay, we have a lot of resources at Courageous Parents Network. I just screenshot a few things here. If you go to our website in our media library and just search for sibling, it'll pull up these things for you, as well as a lot of videos of parents talking about the sibling experience with serious illness and also some siblings speaking themselves. We also have 2 recorded events that we did in webinar style with sibling panels that I encourage you to watch to learn more about the sibling experience. I am going to shift gears now for a moment, and I realize that I am speaking quickly, and I'm going to continue to speak quickly because I think I have about 20 minutes, but I really want to get through this material on tending to yourself as a parent, and I will explain why. So to shift courses here a little bit, I want to make the note that what I have learned both in my practice and the research is very clear about is that families are resilient. Children with illness are resilient, siblings are resilient, and parents are resilient, and family structures, family units are really resilient. And so I'm going to shift gears and talk about resiliency for a moment. So resiliency is the ability to bounce back, quote unquote, or recover quickly from a challenge or hardship. I don't know what quickly means. I think I should take that out there. Let's say recover, or recover relatively quickly from a challenge or a hardship. It is also the ability to adapt to new and changing situations. So there's a degree of flexibility that comes with resiliency. And there's a piece in the New Yorker from many years ago, and I just love this quote that was in this piece by Maria Konnikova. She writes, "Do you succumb or do you surmount?" And I hope that just seeing that quote in general reminds you of your own resiliency and your family's resiliency, because you're clearly surmounting, right? You are doing the thing that you need to do, that you want to do. You're loving the child, you're loving the family. You are surmounting in your own way as it is. Resiliency, however, doesn't imply a lack of difficulty or distress, right? So we can be the most resilient person in the room and have lots of bad things happen to us and lots of coping required to get through those things. And interestingly, you can't really build resiliency without hardship, right? So it's a bit of a muscle. And encountering hardships allows you to have the ability to develop more resiliency. It is also not a personality trait. We are not born as a resilient person or a non-resilient person. These are things that can be learned and developed. And this came through to me, I think, as I was studying family coping and illness many years ago, when I learned that research can show you how parents of children with illness cope that lead to better outcomes or worse outcomes, right? And you look at the way these people describe that they cope, and you realize that all these strategies are things that can be taught to others who are not employing them, right? So it's something that can be learned and developed, and it's not stagnant. We can just grow our resiliency over time. Now, I'm not talking about self-care today, and you're going to listen to this video, and it's a good example of why I've decided to focus on family resiliency and parent resiliency instead of self-care.
You don't realize that you're in stress.
Yeah.
I didn't recently, as far as I'm concerned, you would have asked me a month ago, do you have any stress? I'm like, no, absolutely not. Why would I have any stress? Because I'm so used to my circumstances that I don't realize it. I actually broke my crown because I don't realize that I cringe at night. And then like for the last month before that, like I woke up and my tongue hurts. It was like swollen. I'm literally biting my tongue and I don't realize it because I'm clenching and I have stress. What I want the most, if someone were to ask me, I want to be able to send me somewhere where I don't care what it is, so long as it's a clean room. I don't want to pick up anything. All white is what I prefer, and I want to sleep for a whole entire week. Have someone take care of me, give me my food so that I don't have to think about what to do with what, none of it. Yoga sounds like work to me. I don't mean to be whatever, but like yoga to me is like exhausting. I have to then sweat and then have to take a shower and then I'm going to be hungry right after that. Like, no, I just want to just be. And as to meditation, I actually know how to meditate. I learned that as a child, as a byproduct of something. And I don't know that would work either, because being quiet, all I'm thinking is all the things. I want to sleep because I'm unawares, but I also want to, all the time when I am awake, I want to be busy. They probably think I'm nuts on my younger son's school because he's in middle school, and on special occasions like Valentine's.
I'm going to stop there for the sake of time, but I think the general idea is conveyed, and I don't have a camera to see any of you, so I can't see if there were facial reactions to this video, but I hope at least someone in the room nodded their head or smiled when they hear Jeanette say that, like, self-care, what she really just wants is to, like, sleep in a clean room and to have other people take care of her and feed her. And I love this so much. And she says yoga's work because you have to sweat and then bathe after. And meditation, she's afraid will be noisy in her brain, and she doesn't need more of that. And she goes on to describe, which I cut off here, how if she is going to be alert and not able to go sleep in a white room for a week, then she wants to do something like fun and productive. And she goes on to describe these elaborate gift packages she makes for her other son's teachers. And so the reason I don't love talking about self-care is because it's undefinable, right? It's really like doing, there's a broad definition. It's like doing something for yourself that like is helpful and makes you feel good. And what I have learned is that varies so much from parent to parent, and we can recommend yoga. Yoga is wonderful, but it may also be, I don't know, texting with a friend on your phone throughout the day. I mean, there's self-care really is an individual process. So we're focusing on resiliency. And I want to talk about this because every person, so this applies to siblings too, it also applies to the unit of the family, has risk factors in their life, and then they have resiliency factors. So risk factors could be things like unstable housing, unstable job, mental health concerns, maybe learning disabilities for some children. And then we have these resiliency factors, someone who's creative, someone who problem solves, someone who knows how to cope under stress, someone who knows how to build relationships with people. These are all these things that buffer out the risk factors in our lives. So we talk about resilience because it truly is a buffer. It buffers, it can buffer risk factors. It can also buffer mental health challenges like depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. Resiliency can help with your physical health. Again, the reason we're talking about this today is because your well-being affects the well-being not just of yourself, but your family. And then the reason I personally like to talk about resilience is because we all have it to begin with. We can grow it, and we deserve to feel resilient and well. These next few slides I am going to go through quite quickly because of time. Feel free to take pictures of these screens, but I will also give the PowerPoint, and it can be distributed after the fact to all of you. So we're going to go through this quickly, but just hang in there. In terms of thinking about your own resiliency, I have 3 domains that I would encourage you to think about. Connecting with your own strengths, healthy thinking, and then community. So in terms of connecting with your own strengths, I want you to reflect on, and you're not going to have time to do it in this moment, but maybe this is a little exercise you could do at home, and maybe you could do this with the whole family together, and ask each person in the family, including yourself, what is it that I bring to the table here? The figurative table of our family, right? I'm a person who is a quick thinker. I'm a person who's organized. I'm a person who knows how to be sarcastic. I'm a person who figures out how to solve a problem when it seems unsolvable. I'm a person who is good at doing research, digging into the internet and finding all the good, meaty stuff that's helpful to my family. I'm a person who works hard. I'm a person who can function without a lot of sleep. Maybe some people are like that. I'm more like Jeanette, who wants to sleep for a week. There are all these things that you bring to the table, but we often don't think about it. Like really, we don't spend the time doing a little basic analysis of ourselves and saying like, oh my goodness, there's so much about me that is getting me through and that I could capitalize on. And when you focus on your strengths, it reminds you that you are competent and capable. And sometimes that's overshadowed by things that are going wrong. I dropped the ball on this, we were late to this, I forgot to sign the permission slip for this, we missed the appointment for this, right? Like those things happen, and I think they overshadow all the great, wonderful things that we are doing. So I've been thinking about like, what are the positive qualities that you bring to this family experience? If you want to think about how to evoke that and how to think about that for yourself, again, this is a good thing to take a picture of, but you can ask yourself some of these questions to tap into what your strengths might be. Here are some words that people might describe some of their personal strengths. You can see how even if one of these was a strength of yours, how it could be useful as you're tending to your child and your family, especially persistence. Families of children with medical complexity are persistent, just naturally. I know that you are already. by nature of your experience. So connecting with your strengths is one way to tap into your resiliency, and then healthy thinking, or the power of how you perceive situations, is another way. So this is a big body of work. If anyone has heard of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, that's where I'm drawing this from. This is the cognitive piece. Cognitive is just a fancy scientific term for thoughts. And the idea is that the way we think about a situation can really shape how we feel and how we react. Well, I'll give an example actually on the next slide. But I can't stress enough that healthy thinking is not necessarily the same thing as positive thinking. It can be, but usually healthy thinking is balanced thinking. It is buying a lottery ticket and saying, I could win, someone has to win. Not necessarily, I'm for sure going to win this lottery, right? Like, that's great if that's where your mind goes, but generally, healthy thinking is just more balanced, rational thinking. So when you're having a thought about something, imagine the thought bubble above your head when you're facing a stressor. Be in tune with how you're thinking about it, and then ask yourself, is this way of thinking about this problem helping or hindering? Okay, so for example, your child is admitted to the hospital, and is the thought bubble, the first thought that comes to your mind, here we go again. This week is now destroyed. Everything we had planned this week, it's done for. We can't do blah blah blah. Or can you say, ugh, thinking that way, there may be truth in that, but it's not helping how I feel, and it's not going to help me respond the way I want to respond. Can I shift the way I'm thinking to something like, we're admitted again, this is hard, but we have done this before. And our family now knows a routine, and we're going to employ the routine to the best of our ability, and we are going to get through this week, just like we've done it before. And you can see how that's not a rainbow and butterflies thought, but it's a little more balanced, and it probably produces a better outcome in terms of how you're thinking or feeling. So here's some examples. Are you a person who you go in and say, nothing ever goes my way? Or do you say, well, today's problem doesn't mean my future is bleak, right? It's not like nothing ever goes my way, or nothing will ever go my way. This is all my fault. Or can you shift the thought to, ugh, okay, I made a mistake, but I might be able to learn something from this experience and prevent it from happening again. Are you a person who thinks, ugh, I've always been this way? Or can you say, I've been this way for a long time, but I'm open to changing this because I am not a stagnant being. I am a growing, learning human. Here's some examples. We're not going to go through these exercises now, but let's see, something in the chat. Let's see. Okay. You can think about how in these situations you could think in a way that is more helpful or less helpful. Okay, community and belonging. This you know, and you're all together there in the room and then virtually in community, even if you can't be there physically. You know the importance of community and belonging, and it's so huge. It's a fundamental aspect of being human. It contributes to how we think of ourselves, in terms of our development of our identity. And when it comes to identity development, I just want to pause for a moment because you're probably thinking about this, if you do have other children in your family, about the sibling identity development. And you should be, because they're young and it's developing. But our identity as adults evolves, like forever, right? Like before you had this child with this condition, you would have maybe described yourself this way, and now maybe you describe yourself a little bit differently, and that is going to continue to evolve. And so having community around to be part of shaping that makes sense to you is really important and also special. It also allows you to be your most authentic self when you're in community with people that understand you, understand your experience enough, right? You can get support and validation, of course, but also it's reminding that suffering is a part of the human experience. So when you're really isolated and alone, or if you make choices to keep yourself isolated, it prevents you from having the opportunity to have shared connection and with other people, and understanding that you're not the only one who goes through hard things. I always have to state, and you may have experienced that yourself, that your community may change. So those who supported you prior to having your child with a serious condition may not be the same people who support you the way you need it after you've had this child. And I hear this over and over again in the pediatric cancer community, which is where I've done a lot of my work, that some of those relationships fizzle, or they kind of go further back, a little further away from you, and then there are some other people that lean in, and the people who lean in might take you by surprise, and they may be brand new relationships, right? So like the people in your care team, another person in the community who has a child maybe with a different condition, but you still kind of like get it with each other, and that sort of thing. Something to keep in mind, and I'm aware of the time, I'm almost done here. I can never stress enough that just remembering that any single relationship cannot meet all of your relationship needs. And I think that's so important to state, because that means your relationship to your partner, if you have one, your relationship with your mother, your relationship with a friend, they're all important, and none of them can do 100% of filling your social or relationship or support cups. So you do need to diversify in some ways, right? Different people are going to meet different needs. And if you desire one person to meet all of your needs, that expectation is really high, and they're going to disappoint you because they can't possibly do it, just like you can't meet all of someone else's needs. And of course, let's always remember that certain boundaries in relationships, of course, are okay and healthy. So we go back to this wheel as a reminder where we started today, that everyone in the family, their functioning is interrelated. When one person's struggling, the other people feel it. But as one person heals or copes better or enhances their well-being, the other people feel that too, and that gives us a lot of hope and encouragement. I hope it does for you, at least, as you tend to yourself and your family. I will end with this. This is a QR code that takes you to CPN's website, although I know you received or had access to maybe some of our handouts. I do hope that you'll visit our website. You can join. We put on monthly webinars. We are a complement, not a replacement for the Heterotaxy Foundation, but we are disease agnostic. So we have these beautiful relationships with all kinds of patient organizations, like the one that you're a part of this weekend. And if you're really curious about this idea of resiliency, there's plenty of reading out there. You can Google or go onto Amazon. This is there are other workbooks, but I mentioned this one if you want to do a super deep dive into some resiliency building on your own. And I will stop there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salley. I can confidently say that what you shared with us resonates with all of us in this room, and we really very much appreciate that there are also very practical things that we can take with us and implement right away. And I like that, at least I know, for me, I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like I can implement them without expecting perfection. Thank you very much for that information.
Yeah, I guess I should have a slide that says don't expect perfection, and don't really go for it. That's part of resiliency building, right? Like, we implement, we try, and we just get stronger.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Are there any questions?
Is there a way that anyone can contact you if they have a question in the future?
Yeah. Yes, you are absolutely welcome to share my email address. And maybe you all can find a way to do that. Renee has that information, and I welcome any emails, absolutely.
Thank you so very much.